Oh, wow. Each charted course, each careful step on the highway. More, much more than this. I did it way. And now as tears subside, I finally always stop. So much. Yes. Is there?
Yes, that's what. What am I saying out there? But I enjoy to skip my. Then you got those. Because when this from us,
Good morning, distinguished guests. Good morning. Okay. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to warmly and very specially welcome you to this sensitization workshop on Nigeria's rebased GDP and the Consumer Price Index. Before we start, please, I'll crave your indulgence for us to all stand as we recite the first stanza of the Nigerian national anthem as our opening prayer. Thank you. Media, are we ready? Because I'm not sure everyone here has fully acclimatized to the national anthem. Okay, so which means if we put this to a test, the media won't. Okay. All right, so in 3, 2, 1, media, are we ready? Thank you all so much. We may have a seat. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Once again, I very warmly and specially welcome you to this sensitization workshop hosted by the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, CC, in collaboration with the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria. For those who might not be firmly familiar with CC, CC is a non-profit think tank that is dedicated to conducting rigorous evidence-based research for policy making. This all-important event today will start almost immediately as soon as we receive the SG in. So I'll quickly run us through the program of events today. So after now, we'll have a welcome address by the Executive Director for the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa. And then we'll have the special remarks by the Statistician General of the Federation, who has very well joined us now. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together as we warmly recognize the presence of the Statistician General of the Federation, who has just joined us. Please, a round of applause, please, for the SG. Thank you so much. We're honored by your presence. So after the welcome remarks by the Executive Director of the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, we'll then receive a special remark by the Statistician General of the Federation, after which we'll go into a series of presentations, 2 presentations from the National Bureau of Statistics, somewhat like an introduction into what we're about to do today. Then we'll have a panel session, after which we'll go for a tea break, and then we'll have our photo sessions. When we're back from tea break, we'll have a couple of other presentations, 4 presentations, which will be followed suit by the second panel session, and we'll be done for today. I believe that we'll all have, an interesting time together today. So just a very quick housekeeping. The restrooms are located just to my left and to my right behind the room for your convenience, and then we'll also crave your indulgence to please put your phones on silent or vibration mode so that we do not disrupt the meeting. Thank you all so much. At this time, please, with a round of applause, help me welcome the Executive Director, Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, Dr. Chukwuka Onyekwena, for his welcome address. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for him.
Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome the special guest, the Statistician General of the Federation, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this one-day sensitization workshop on Nigeria's rebased gross domestic product and revised consumer price index methodology by National Bureau of Statistics. This event is jointly organized by the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, CC, and MBS. So the present here today is a testament of the shared understanding. Now, credible and up-to-date economic data is not merely a technical necessity. It's crucial for informed decision-making, sustainable growth, and inclusive development. Allow me to briefly introduce the Center for the Study of the Economies of Africa, which is an independent, non-profit research organization dedicated to conducting high-quality, evidence-based analysis to inform economic policy in Nigeria and across Africa. Our work spans macroeconomic management, public financial management, trade, human capital development, and sustainable growth. We are committed to bridging the gap between research and policy by providing rigorous analysis accessible to decision makers. We believe that credible data and aligned contextual understanding is a cornerstone of effective policy reform. This workshop is a natural extension of our mission to ensure that new data is not only produced, but also understood, disseminated, and applied. The MBS has recently undertaken two major statistical exercises, basing on GDP and revising the CPI methodology. These updates are aimed at ensuring that our national statistics reflect current reality of our economy and also meet global best practices. For instance, the Rebased GDP has allowed our national accounts to capture new and emerging sectors, technological advancements, shifts in consumer behavior, and structural changes in the economy. The last exercise has revealed new insights, revealing the large contributions of previously underreported sectors, such as telecommunications, film, and creative industries, widening our understanding of the economy. So this is timely as Nigeria looks to diversify the economy and give a picture of emerging sectors that can drive the economy. Similarly, revising the CPI methodology is crucial for accurately measuring inflation, which directly affects every household and firm. The CPI tracks changes in the cost of a representative basket of goods and services over time. By updating the composition of that basket, the data sources, and the weighting of items, it ensures that inflation figures truly reflect the current spending patterns of Nigerian households. This is vital for setting monetary policy, adjusting wages, planning social benefits, and assessing the real purchasing power of citizens. It is important to note that the rebasing of GDP and revision of the CPI methodology are technical processes carried out by statistical experts. But for these changes to translate into better economic outcomes, they must be understood by a much wider audience. So this workshop is designed to bridge that gap. Over the course of today, we will not only review the methodology behind these revisions, but also explore their implications for fiscal policy, monetary stability, investment planning, poverty measurement, and social protection. We will also discuss the broader context in which these revisions have taken place. Global economic conditions remain volatile. Geopolitical tensions, climate-related shocks, technological disruptions, and the shifting trade patterns all exert pressure on economies. In such an environment, the importance of timely, reliable, and comprehensive national statistics cannot be overstated. They are our compass in navigating uncertainty. The production and effective use of national statistics require collaboration. The MBS has demonstrated commendable leadership in implementing these methodological improvements, drawing on technical expertise, stakeholder consultations, and international best practices. But the responsibility for making the most of these data sets does not rest with the MBS alone. It is a shared responsibility that spans ministries, research institutions, private enterprises, development agencies, and the media. By bringing together diverse stakeholders in one room, this workshop has created a space for engaging with these data. By carrying out more sensitization workshops like today, we can improve the understanding of the data, which can help in better designing of interventions in a timely, targeted, and effective way. This also strengthens the culture of evidence-based policy in Nigeria, ensuring that decisions are guided not by guesswork or political expediency, but by facts and analysis. Let me thank you once again, our partners, the National Bureau of Statistics, for their expertise and dedication, our distinguished panelists, who will guide us through the technical and practical aspects of these resolutions, and all of you, the participants, for bringing out your time, attention, and insights to this dialogue. I encourage you all to engage actively, ask questions, share your experiences, and think creatively about how the rebased GDP and revised CPI can be used. And on behalf of CC, I warmly welcome you all once again to this important workshop. Let us seize this opportunity to learn, to connect, and work together towards a stronger statistical foundation for Nigeria's development. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chika, for graciously opening this event and also giving us context into what we're to expect in today's workshop. At this time, it is now my distinct honor and pleasure to welcome the Statistician General of the Federation and CEO of the National Bureau of Statistics, Prince Adeyemi Adeniro, for his special remarks. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the SG. Thanks.
The Executive Director, Center for the Study of Economies of Africa, Dr. Chukwuka, all the presenters at today's sensitization workshop, distinguished panelists that have been invited today, the Directorate and staff of MBS, all erudite professors, you can see Professor Walike and co, that are here present, and scholars, analysts, economists that are here in our midst, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here this morning at the sensitization workshop on rebasing of the gross domestic product, GDP, and the consumer price index, CPI, which is being hosted by CC. The National Bureau of Statistics is once again proud to partner with the CC on this sensitization workshop that brings together a core base of data users in Nigeria to discuss the recently released result of the rebasing of GDP and CPI conducted by the Bureau. So let me start by commending CC for providing this platform that we are using today for this critical discussion, and to also join Dr. Chukwuka in welcoming all participants to the workshop, both those in the room as well as those that are joining us online. As we all know, data is important for the socioeconomic growth and development of any country. More so for us in Nigeria, which is an emerging economy, and with the lofty ideas of the present government to grow our economy into a $1 trillion economy by the year 2030. People seem to be talking of the 1 trillion economy as if to say it's next year, but it's by the year 2030. So we still have a long way to go. In addition to bring a $1 trillion economy, is also to ensure that all resources of the country, both natural and human resources, are exploited sustainably efficiently, and effectively for the benefit of the whole citizen. We are saying that the economy has enlarged, but people are still asking, it has not permitted, the impact of it is not felt at the grassroots. So these are some of the things that will be coming up in discussion today. So ensuring that adequate and reliable statistical information is made available to all users, whether it is government, whether it is policymakers, researchers, private sector operators, investors, and development partners at all levels to take the right decision and track the effectiveness of their programs is not only essential, but very, very critical in our discussion. This is why MBS once again embark on these routine statistical exercises. I call it routine because it's supposed to be a routine exercise, not something special, the rebasing of the GDP and the CPI. But because it is not usually done at the right time, we take it as a very big deal. But for us at the Statistics Office, it is supposed to be a routine exercise like any other survey that we release. It is important that we understand the data very well for appropriate application and use. This is why this event has been put together for us to discuss today. As a whole, we also aim to ensure that all users have an accurate understanding of the process and the methodology that we have followed to arrive at the result of these two exercises. It is important for us to see the process, all the things that we have gone through, the standard, the best practice that have been adopted before the result is out. So from the ensuing presentations, all the presentations that will be seen today, all the facts and issues about the exercises will be laid to bear. And all emerging issues since we released the result will also be addressed properly. We have been collating comments from different quarters to ensure that we address them in this discussion. By fostering a culture of data literacy, which this workshop and engagement like this are designed to promote, we can ensure that policymakers and all our esteemed users are aware of the results and use them as a powerful tool to design and track effective policies and programs to achieve desired objectives. As we advance, this is one area of our mandate that we continue to enhance by ensuring that we increase data literacy among the populace to drive up the use and application of our statistical data in policy making. At this point in time, let me thank CC, our partner, in hosting this workshop, and also appreciate other invited presenters, panelists, professors, scholars that are here present, and welcome indeed each and every one of us to this event today once again. I look forward to a very constructive, very fruitful, and engagement today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. Those that are in house here and those that have joined us online, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for the Statistician General of the Federation. I remember when I did my youth service at the MBS. Yes, so it's very nostalgic for me to have half of my family, here. So this is my event. I am both NBS and I am also CC as well. Please, a round of applause for me. Thank you. All right, so now we'll be going into the presentations, and we'll have the technical assistant to the Statistician General, Mr. Moses Waniko, who will be taking us through the overview of the rebased GDP exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a round of applause, let us welcome Mr. Moses Waniko for his presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moses Waniko. I'm going to be taking you through this presentation. As much as possible, I'll try to be fast. I've been given 25 minutes to deliver this presentation, so I'll be a bit fast, just so that we're able to manage our time effectively. Thank you. So I have the outline of the presentation. I'll be talking on GDP rebasing, what GDP rebasing is. I will also talk on key concepts surrounding GDP compilation and, of course, GDP rebasing. Sorry. Again, I'll talk on the framework of GDP rebasing, and then we'll present the preliminary results that we have, and finally, conclusions. So GDP rebasing is a concept that I think is familiar to a lot of us. Most of us have heard about GDP rebasing. But it's important that we really look at what it means from a professional perspective and from the work that we do at the Bureau. So rebasing is the process of updating an old base year with a recent one to reflect changes in the prices of goods and services produced within the economy. So over time, what you find is that we compile GDP and then we have the nominal and the real GDP. So because prices will often change, you really need to rebase in order to accurately measure the performance of the economy. And once you do that, you are able to properly measure actual production in the economy. So you are not just limited to the fluctuations that you find in prices, but you are holding prices constant in order to see if you're actually producing or not, if there is an improvement in production or not, and not just as a result of increments or increases in prices of goods and services. So once you hold the base year a constant, by changing that base year, what you are simply doing is trying to do a rebasing of the gross domestic product. Constant price estimates are recalculated using the new base year prices. And then we're using 2008 system of national accounts. That's a methodological document that helps you to, it allows you to look at the various definitions and concepts and principles that are expected to be used for GDP compilation. Rebasing should occur at the most detailed level to enhance the quality of constant price estimate. So during the rebased year, we looked at the data at a more detailed level in order to be able to correctly and properly measure the economy of the country. So the definition of key concepts. First and foremost, what is gross domestic product? Gross domestic product measures the monetary value of final goods and services, that is, those that are bought by the final user produced in a country in a given period of time. So the GDP measures basically the final goods and services that are produced within the economy. National accounts are a system of accounts and balance sheets that provide a broader integrated framework to describe an economy of a region or a country. A system of national accounts really is an internationally agreed standard set of recommendations on how to compile measures of economic activities in accordance with strict accounting conventions based on economic principles. So typically there is an internationally agreed standard set of recommendations on how GDP should be compiled, and Nigeria is not left out. So the SNA allows you to do that compilation following internationally best practices. And then what are weights? Weights are shares of economic activities to the aggregate gross domestic product. So as I continue to present, I will talk more on what weights are, but broadly, weights are just shares, of each economic activity to the total GDP. Base year, what is a base year? This is a reference year that is used to calculate the GDP itself. So base year is just a reference year upon which we do the rebasing, and then subsequently we begin to calculate GDP for the country. So GDP approaches, we have 3 GDP approaches that are used. For Nigeria, we actually compile for the 3 approaches. We have the production approach, the expenditure approach, we have the income approach. For the production approach, the methodology is to calculate the value added, in the economy. And that is done by you need to net the intermediate consumption, which is the cost of input from the gross output of what is produced within the economy. We have the income approach, which uses compensation of employees plus consumption of fixed capital, which business accounting will call depreciation. It's a bit slightly different from the national accounts and concept. And then plus operating surplus or missed income. And finally, there is the expenditure approach, which typically you say consumption of household consumption or household final consumption expenditure, plus government final consumption expenditure, plus gross capital formation, which is known as investment, plus export minus import. So that's the formula for the expenditure approach. In Nigeria, we compile the 3 approaches. There are countries who do 2, some do just 1 approach. So national accounts aggregates at constant prices provide important indicators for measuring growth in the economy. So once you compile the national accounts, you have the numbers, you can now begin to monitor the economy, you can calculate growth rates and see if you are doing well or not. So it's important that once that is done, you now talk on, after a period of time, you talk on updating the base year. So the base year is updated periodically. Internationally, it is recommended to do that between 5 to 10 years, just so that you're properly measuring the economy and then reflecting the changes that have happened over time. Weights are generally used in the rebasing, and they are generated during the rebasing exercises. Each base year gives a different perspective resulting from those weights. So each time there is a rebasing exercise, the weights typically would change, showing structural changes in the economy. So framework for the rebasing of GDP, there's a framework that is being used, not just in Nigeria, but internationally. We have manuals, that are used, and they are guides, in what we do and how GDP is compiled. The first is System of National Accounts 2008. This is a methodological document that allows you to compile GDP based on internationally acceptable standards. And it has definitions, principles, methodologies that are in compliance with GDP computation. The second manual is International Standard for Industrial Classification of Economic Activities. Revision 4 is the latest. And then what this manual does is to help you classify economic activities. There are a lot of activities done by economic agents. So how do we classify these activities? So the manual allows you to do that from crop production, manufacturing, mining, construction, down to other services. And then Central Product Classification, Revision 2 is also the latest. We've adopted that manual. It helps you to classify products in the economy. So beyond just what you know as economic activities, what are the products that are produced in the economy? And how do you classify them, align them to their various economic activities? So that manual helps you to do that. Balance of Payments Manual version 6 helps you to relate international transactions. You do know that we do not exist in isolation. So because we transact with the rest of the world, there is need to properly classify their transactions. And so balance of payment helps you to do that. The Government Finance Services Manual 2014 helps you to classify government expenditure properly. So that is what they call COIFO. It's a classification of function of government. So this manual helps you to classify all expenditures that are incurred by the government. So for the rebasing, we've done the rebasing. In order to do the rebasing, we started by constructing the supply and use table, what we call SUT. We started this process in 2018. The SUT was constructed. The SUT is a matrix that contains detailed industry and product breakdowns, and it is used to provide a new benchmark for rebasing. So typically what you do is to construct an SUT to do a rebasing because it has the different contracts. You have the production approach in there, you have the expenditure, you have the income approach, all embedded in the SUT. At the end of the day, you're able to populate the SUT, you have a balance of the SUT, and that gives you the figures for the rebasing. So the dimension that we've applied is to use 46 economic industries and then 217 products. At the end of the day, in balancing the SUT, there was a 2.7% statistical discrepancy that was noticed, between the three approaches, and then eventually we're able to balance the SUT. So what you find in the rebased numbers is a product of what the SUT has produced. As a matter of fact, the SUT gives you values across different products. And at the end of the day, the aggregate of those values gives you the new rebased numbers. So data used for the rebased GDP were sourced from different sources or quarters. The first is that in order to do the rebasing, we needed numbers from the informal economy, and then we needed numbers on household businesses. So the Nigerian Living Standard Survey was used 2019-2023 to provide data for household expenditure, because we all spend money and we all consume. That survey also provided numbers for the informal sector, which is a vital aspect of our economy in Nigeria. So we also we conducted the National Business Sample Census and a follow-up survey of establishments in 2021. That census and the survey provided numbers basically for the formal sector, across different industries. We also conducted the National Agricultural Sample Census and Sample Survey in 2022, because agriculture is fundamental to our economy. We needed to properly measure agriculture. So that census provided numbers for all the agricultural activities, from crop production, fishing, livestock, forestry. And then because we discovered there were a few gaps, in the data that we were collecting, we needed to do special studies. And we did special studies in 3 areas. We did special studies in research and development, water supply, waste management, sewage and remediation, and then we had one in trade and transport measure. Now, beyond all of this, we collected administrative statistics from different MDAs, critical MDAs that provided input into the entire rebasing process. It's a whole list of MDAs. I wouldn't want to go into that, but there are a lot of MDAs that we had to work with that provided numbers for the rebasing. So new areas covered and enhanced data collected. You do know today, you will agree with me that digital economy has grown rapidly. So we needed to capture that. Then we incorporated the activities of pension administrators, which was not there in the 2010 numbers. We've incorporated National Health Insurance Authority, which is vital, is a part of insurance. The Nigerian Social Insurance Trust Fund is also part of the insurance sector, which we've incorporated. Activities of modular refineries, we have a few, about 5 or 6, spread across different states. So we try to incorporate them into the rebasing. And then the domestic households as employer of labor was not there before. This time we brought it in And we try to capture that through the living standard survey. Coverage of informal activity, which is vital to the entire process. And then querying another mining activity. So these are new areas covered and enhanced data coverage. Preliminary results. So now, in 2010, we had a GDP size of 54 trillion. In 2019, old series, before the rebasing, the one we published earlier, recorded a GDP size of 145 trillion. And then in 2019, the rebased results show a GDP size of 205 trillion naira. In terms of percentage of revision, of the rebasing, in 2010, we had a revision level of 59.7%, which means that from the rebased numbers in 2010 and the whole numbers of 2010, there was a revision of 59.7%. In 2019, the revision level is 41.7%, which also means that from the 2019 that we published earlier to the 2019 that we have as rebased numbers, the revision level is about 41.7%. And then in between, the gap, in 2010, we moved from 1919 base year to 2010 base year, which was 20 years in between. In 2019, we moved from 2010 base year to 2019 base year, which gave just 9 years gap in between. So this slide shows the new numbers. So in 2019, GDP current basic price is now 204.3 trillion. And then this moved all the way to 2024, which recorded 364.6 trillion naira. GDP current market price, which includes taxes, moved from 205.0 trillion naira in 2019 to 372.8 trillion naira in 2024. GDP at constant basic price, which is popularly called the real GDP, moved from 304 trillion in 2019 to 213.2 in 2024. In terms of the rebased growth rates, in 2020, because of the COVID, we recorded minus 6.9% growth rate. In 2021, 0.95%. In 2022, 4.32%. 2023, 3.04%. And then in 2024, we recorded 3.38% as the rebased growth rates. Now, this is against what we've published previously that showed a growth rate of minus 1.92% in 2020. And then 3.40% in 2021, 3.10% in 2022, 2.74% in 2023, and 3.4% in 2024. So you see that we now have new growth rates, and these growth rates are a bit different from what we had published earlier. So in terms of broad sectorial activities, usually the GDP follows the line of thought of primary, secondary, and tertiary industries in the economy. So what we have is agriculture, industries, and services. So the contribution of agriculture improved from 25.8% in 2019 to 27.8% in 2024. The contribution of industries declined actually from 21.0% in 2019 just 16.6% in 2024. And then the contribution of services actually improved from 53.0% in 2019 to 55.5% in 2024, which shows that in terms of contribution, agriculture and services actually improved over time from 2019 to 2024 compared to the contribution of industries. Now, because Nigeria is an oil producing state, we've presented the numbers for oil contribution and non-oil contribution. Non-oil contribution actually improved from 94.1% in 2019 to 96.6% in 2024. And then because we've had issues with the oil sector in the last few years, the contribution of oil sector declined from 5.8% in 2019 to 3.3%. 3.3% in 2024. In terms of growth of these broad sectors, agriculture recorded 2.6% in 2020, remember during the COVID. And industries and services recorded negative growth rates of minus 22.7% and minus 5.3% respectively in 2020. But this has improved over time to 2.8% and 4.4% in 2024, showing great improvements compared to when we had the COVID. Non-oil growth rate was minus 6.3% in 2020 and now 3.3% in 2024. Oil growth rates, which recorded minus 25.99% in 2020, has improved to 5.5% in 2024. So top 7 economic activities in 2019, these are rebased numbers. So this shows you some structural changes. Here, in 2019, crop remains number 1 in terms of ranking in the economy with 17.5%. Now, I talked on weights, and this brings me to the weights. So what is the share of these economic activities? This one shows the top 7 economic activities of the rebased numbers in 2019. Trade follows with 17.4%. Real estate, 10.7%. Telecommunications, 6.7%. Crude, 5.8%. Livestock, 5.7%. And finally, construction, 5.1%. So remember that we did a census of agriculture, which really improved the performance of livestock due to better data coverage. And that brought livestock to 5.7%. We used to have, I think livestock in 2019, pre-rebasing used to contribute about 1.5% or so. Now it's shown significant improvement in the performance of livestock. Again, it's important to state that the pre-rebasing numbers shows crude, petroleum, and oil as number 3rd and real estate as number 5. With the new rebased numbers, there's been a shift in that ranking. So real estate is now number 3rd, and then crude, petroleum, and natural gas now number 5. So this shows the least 7 economic activities, starting from rail transport with 0.00%. There's a figure here anyway. It's due to the rounding up of the numbers. Electrical and electronics, 0.01% with 21 billion naira. Coal mining recorded 0.011% with 22.8 billion naira. Metals recorded 0.019% with 39 billion naira. Post and courier services recorded 0.02% with 44 billion naira. Publishing recorded 0.023% with 47 billion naira. And finally, oil refining with 0.069%. So in terms of broad structure of the economy, I've said that the rebasing is usually likely to show you some structural changes in the economy. So this slide shows the changes in the contribution of agriculture, industry, and services from what we used to have before the rebasing. So we have the pre-rebasing 2019 and the post-rebasing 2019. Agriculture improved from 22% to 25%. Industry shows lower contribution from 27.6% to 21.0%. And then services shows significant improvement from 50.2% to 53.0%. This shows you that agriculture and services are actually better off in terms of contribution to GDP than industry. So some key changes in terms of contribution to the rebased numbers. I will start with agriculture, which used to record 23.8% in 2010, now recording 25.8% in 2019 rebased numbers, and then in 2024, 26.4%. Livestock has improved in terms of its contribution to GDP from 1.79% in 2010 to 5.76% in 2019, 6.8% in 2024. Forestry improved from 0.25% in 2010 to 1.3% in 2019, and then 1.45% in 2024. And this really can be attributed to the improvements that we've made in the sector from the census that we conducted. Now, trade improved from 16.4% to 17.4% in 2019, and then 18.6% in 2024. Real estate shows significant improvement from 7.5% in 2010 to 10.7% in 2019, and of course, 11.3% in 2024. Art, entertainment, and recreation, which is growing rapidly in the country, improved from 0.06% in 2010 to 0.5% in 2019, 0.49% in 2024. Human health and social services, which is typically the healthcare sector, also shows improvement. We used to have 0.61% in 2010. Now, in 2019, it's 1.46%, and 2024, 1.55%. Digital economy, which is also growing very rapidly in the country, which was not there before, was not measured in 2010, now shows a contribution of 4.12% in 2019 and 6.25% in 2024. So this slide shows you percentage contribution in real terms, not nominal. And it shows you the different sectors and their weights. Agric remains very large in terms of, very significant in terms of the weights. In 2019, 25.8% was recorded for agriculture. In 2024, 27.8% was recorded for agriculture. Mining and quarrying shows 6.07% in 2019, 3.55% in 2024. Manufacturing now records 9.13% in 2019 and 8.24% in 2024. Now this goes all the way down to electricity. Now 0.48% in 2019, 0.7% in 2024. Water supply, 0.22% in 2019, 0.25% in 2024. Construction 5.17% in 2019, 3.93% in 2024. I would take transportation and storage 1.91% in 2010, 0.75% in 2019. So if you look at this compared to what we used to have in the pre-rebasing, you see some dynamics in the numbers, which shows changes in the numbers. Information and communication, 8.54% in 2019, 9.79% in 2024. Financial and insurance recorded 2.47% in 2019, 2.69% in 2024. And then I would take real estate, 10.78% in 2019 and 13.58% in 2024. So informal sector, this is a vital part of the economy. And it is really, really significant in Africa, particularly in the West African region. Now, we've measured the informal sector. We've done a split on the informal numbers between formal and we've done a split on the rebased numbers between the formal and the informal numbers. And these numbers have been presented to you. Agriculture remains predominantly driven by informality. And that is why you see that crop production, livestock, forestry, fishing recorded far above 90% informality. Crude, petroleum, and natural gas recorded 100% formal. In terms of coal mining, this recorded 52.13% informal. Metal oil, 75.29% informal. And the likes, it goes down all the way to the other activities in the economy. Electricity is 100% formal. Water supply, sewage, waste management, remediation recorded 11.39% informal. Construction has about 88% formality. And then telecommunications recorded as high formality. So broadcasting on 100% formality, insurance 100% formality. Real estate recorded 57.37% informality. And then other services, which is largely household in nature, recorded 89.25% informality. In total, what we have for the informal sector, the contribution to the rebased numbers, shows a 42.5% informal sector contribution to GDP, as against 57.5% for the formal. So we've actually we've compiled the Q1 2025 numbers, we've disseminated the numbers. Here we are presenting some of the numbers, highlights of what we've disseminated. So the GDP at current basic price for Q1 2025 stands at 94 trillion naira. At constant basic price, we have 49 trillion naira. Then in terms of the growth rates, so what we've done with the quarterlies is to benchmark the previous quarterly numbers to the rebased annual numbers. And upon that, we were able to compute for Q1 2025 GDP performance. So the growth rate of the rebased Q1 2025 numbers shows 3.13% growth rate. And then what you find below, the last row there shows you the previously published growth rates on quarterly basis. So you see a deviation from what we now record as what we now have as growth rates and what we used to have as growth rates. So similarly, in terms of the contribution of the broad economic sectors, Now, Q1 2025 shows a reduction in the contribution of agri from 24.04% to 23.33%. Industries moved from 19.12% to 19.18%. Services improved from 56.84% to 57.50%. So in terms of contribution of oil and non-oil, the contribution of oil has actually improved from 95.98% to 96.03%, while oil contribution declined from 4.02% to 3.97%. The growth of agriculture actually improved from minus 1.79% to 0.07% in Q1 2025. Industries showed an improvement from 2.35% to 3.42%. Services also recorded improvement from 4.06% to 4.22%. And of course, I talked on the growth rates. So there has been an improvement in the growth rate of Q1 2025 from 2.27% to 3.13%. And then the growth of non-oil shows an improvement from 2.17% to 3.19%. Oil, which has suffered a lot of issues, shows a reduction of a growth rate from 4.7% to 1.87%. So over time, we expect that the numbers will improve as we consolidate the improvements of the policies of government and generally as the economic activities within the country increases. So this shows the top 5 fastest and slowest activities in Q1 2025 in terms of growth rates. So it's important to state that an activity may be growing at a rapid level, but in terms of the weight, it might not be significant. So the growth of the economy, the activity, even though may show some improvement in that sector or activity, but in terms of the weight, really, the weight might not be big enough to drive the performance of the economy. So what we've recorded for rail transport and pipelines is 28.95% for growth rate. Metal was 25.20%, electricity 18.65%, road transport 18.46%, financial institutions recorded 15.19%. However, there have been activities that are the slowest in Q1 2025. Activities like coal mining with negative 21.28%, quarrying and other minerals 21.55%, livestock 16.69%, other services 6.13%, and then plastic and rubber products 3.20%. Now remember that this changes over time. It moves from a quarter to a quarter. So what you find in Q2 might not be this, depending on what happens within the activity and of course within the economy generally. Now in terms of top 10 contributing activities to reach GDP in Q1 2025, trade is the highest with 18.21%, crop production 17.4%. So these are the biggest drivers of our economy. And then real estate. So because of the revision that we've done and then the improvement in real estate contributed 13.3% to Q1 2025. Telecommunications 8.50%, construction 4.7%, all the way down to professional, scientific and technical services with 2.47%. So these are the numbers, and then we have a few challenges that we want to talk about. The rebasing process had some challenges, ranging from poor documentation and bookkeeping. And I would say that because of the size of the informal sector, there has been issues with getting numbers from the informal economy. And you agree with me that in the informal sector, people just do businesses. You know, the way they conduct their affairs are they just do random businesses without proper recording and keeping of data. So once you go to collect numbers, you have challenges in terms of collecting these numbers in the format that you would really want to use them. So it's been a challenge collecting numbers in the informal sector. However, for us in the Bureau, we have a structured way of collecting the numbers and interpreting the numbers. And so we usually will couch the questions in a way that we can manage the process. And then we can from there do some computations of the numbers. But this is really a big challenge, not just in Nigeria, but I would say in Africa. Then auditing of information by large establishments, which is really a worry for us. It's a big issue for us because if we do not get numbers from establishments, from economic agents, how then do we compute, you know, the GDP in a more accurate manner? So this is really a challenge when businesses odd records, odd numbers, odd information, and then we have to constantly pursue them to collect these numbers is worrisome. However, we are doing all we can as a bureau to surmount these challenges and, of course, improve the processes that we have and the numbers that we'll continue to publish and continue to release to the public. I guess this brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you.